Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today comes from an executive background, a wine importer, a business owner, and is dedicated to global humanitarian support. Welcome Peter Morales. He graduated from Lehigh University in 1984. His career began in retail and operations management at Johnson & Johnson, then Grand Metropolitan, which is now Diageo, and Peerless Importers. In 1998, Peter opened his own worldwide business consulting company, Andrew LLC, which specializes in international beverages. After taking on a project with South Africa, where he successfully developed plans to market wines to the United States, Morales jumped into the importing business and started his company, 57 Main Street Imports. Peter is currently at Black Hawk Imports, which is what 57 Main morphed into in 2014, and Peter won the Rutgers University Vision of Excellence Award as the chairman of Vision 57 Foundation. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else you'd like to add? I mean, like we could go on, but we had to pick a few points.
No, thank you. Those are all good starting points, and I look back and it's a blur, right? Yeah, I've been in food and beverage for a long time, and as I shared with you, food has always been a passion. I'm a Caribbean guy. Sunday dinners in the Caribbean, whether it was oxtail or cowfoot soup, just with some nice coconut, coconut garnish and all the rest, right? Cassava and root.
I love
it was
it.
all that. They call it yard food.
Yard food.
Yeah, a little
yard food.
Little callaloo. So I mean, over the years, I always had a passion. And, my technical background, people always talk about, ask me, how'd you get from metallurgy and materials and sciences and things like that into, doing cattle, we're in the cattle business also in Montana and then doing the it's agribusiness, right? I mean, the soils, we had to get minerals out of the soils for the different, you had to understand metallurgy and materials. You know what you're bringing out of the soil and what you're going to turn it into. And the same thing, wine composition. You have all different types. In an aged red wine, you have 450 different compounds in it, and it just matches up. So people say, and then fermentation, and as technical as you want to get.
Yeah.
Right. So having the technical background that I had, it has just helped me immensely. Work with some incredible winemakers around the world over the years. And then in things like husbandry and things like that, and understanding what they're doing, the genetics of breeding great Angus cattle and lines that people look and are proud at what they're serving at some of the great steakhouses in the world. So it's all kind of melded together. People ask me all the time. It seems like all of your professional background is you use all the time, and I said, yeah, I do. It's last 2 pandemic years, running COVID safety for a major food company here, Fancy Foods out of the Bronx, who's also my partner on our food projects and things like that. So it's, all dimension, keeping America with food and keeping grocery stores stocked was critically important to us over the last 2 years. So we were proud. We didn't miss one shipping day as far as getting food to New York groceries and things like that. So, this country was without a rudder when this thing started, as you know.
Yeah.
And people were coming up with all types of, okay, this is our safety protocol.
Drink Clorox.
Yeah, Clorox, right? Off the shelf.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you go to the store and you couldn't find wipes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I took baby wipes because I used to work for Johnson & Johnson back in the day. Baby wipes was one of our products. I took baby wipes and took Clorox, soaked the baby wipes, and then I had my sanitary alcohol wipes. So that's, a lot of people came up with ingenious hacks for safety over the last 2 years. Incredible stuff. So,
Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about this afternoon for sure. Just tell everybody, this is one of your wines we're having right now in your book. Just tell them about this particular wine we're having right now.
So the wine we're having now is Paramo. Paramo means perseverance in love, Latin translation. So it's Paramo Anniversario, the anniversary of persevering in love. And as you do your market study, we came up with this with the original white flowers and hummingbirds. Right? We felt women loved that. How
Yeah,
could
it's a beautiful package. The bottle's beautiful.
Yeah, how could they turn that down?
Right.
Every woman and every human being, they look at this and they say, "Wow, male or female,
Yeah.
or other whomever." Right. So we got that right. We didn't have to force it. And what I like is a term that's called simply sophisticated. And that's what people have said to this. You know, you didn't try to overdo this bottle and shade it and all types of things. And I said, look, hummingbirds were always part of my life in the Caribbean. They meant a lot. This is the hardest working bird in the world. Fly up here during the season, thousands of miles. How many beats per minute? They'd be 3,000 beats per minute. So hardest working bird. So we said that perseverance that you see a hummingbird do. But the whole capture of perseverance and love, people say, we want to pursue love every day. Right, and it just meant so much to me in researching the name and saying, this is what we want this to be. And whether you love skiing, you love biking, you love hiking, celebrate with Pernamo.
I love it. I love it. So let's start at the beginning. So you already said you were a Caribbean, you have Caribbean descent. Where did you grow up?
Well, part of it was in Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Okay.
Right, Port of Spain, Trinidad, and lived in a town called Belmont. I mean, I was born in Port of Spain, so but that's early '60s, and then we lived in a place called Belmont, which was right across from Queens Park, Savannah, and Queens Park, Savannah is one of the biggest horse racing tracks in the hemisphere. So we were on a British Commonwealth. So the Brits used to come in every racing season, open up their magnificent houses that were around the park. So I actually worked at the horse track. Okay. I would help the jockeys get rid of pigeons and things like that, and I'd just shoo them away so they wouldn't spook the horses too much. Lots of pigeons were looking for the grain and the oats and all that. So they gave me different tasks to do, carrying buckets and helping them bring the horses out and things like that. So I loved that. I was always, and I knew the winners on the weekend. And my mom would give me $1. I'd come home with 200. And she said, "You do." So, I'd get consenting adults and say, "I like that. I like the stripes he's wearing today, or whatever." But I would see these horses training. Yeah. And I knew how they were feeling. So it was good. I was around. I love horses, and I rode as a little boy, and so that was part of it. Always close to the earth, so to speak. But I was telling you before, the cuisine in that country, the different, we have amalgamation of people there, right? You have Indian, you have African descent, you have the Spanish, so you have Asian influence and whatever, and the foods were just incredible. Tropical cooking with mango and coconut and that whole basis, and then curries and spices. I mean, we have some of the hottest hot sauce in the world. It'll make smoke come out of the top of your head, right? So, I mean, I had an experience as a kid. My mom left us with the neighbor for the day. She had to go away and do some stuff in another town. So we were playing outside and all that. And I'm watching the birds in the tree, and it's called a bird pepper tree. And the birds are eating these peppers. They just sit up there and they eat the peppers. Oh. So I'm like, okay. So I said, I want to try one of those. So I went and I broke open this bird pepper, and some of the juice went into my eyes. Oh. And then I'd rub my eyes trying to the juice was on my hands too. I was gone. The rest of the day, my mom came home, eyes bloodshot, whatever. I said, and she said, "That's for the birds, Pete." I said, "I learned." So it was one of those learnings you saw and you thought, "Okay, I can handle that." Yeah. Don't mess with birds.
Little bird.
Yeah.
You're just going through all those peppers.
Don't mess with bird pepper. But she used it sparingly in the food dishes on the weekend. On the weekend were our meal, Saturday, Sunday. During the week we were at school, so we had basic sustenance, cheeses and breads and tea and some vegetables during the week. But on the weekend was when we got protein. We got good fish. We used to go down to the fresh market in town and come back with some good whole fish and a chicken that we had to pluck and cook up. So it was all part. I learned to cook by the time I was 5.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So this again set up for.
It's totally like you know, I I'm just tripping because like there's so much for us to like, unpack, but yeah, like your whole life has just been infused with food, and then obviously a natural progression as you get older, if you love food, is the marriage of food and wine together. So I can see it making sense. So how old were you when you came to the United States?
The first time I was 13 months old. Came into Idlewild Airport and all the trappings of that. And then went back and forth, and then Grandma passed, and then I ended up coming back again in '65 into Newark, New Jersey. And then '65 through '68, 69, riots and all that. So I tell people about that all the time as we're some of the discussions over the past 2 years concerning where we are in the world now and the balance of mankind. And I lived that as a kid, right? Through a time when there was serious racial unrest and the things that were in this country. So I had to navigate that. And Newark was a tough town, and at that time, late '60s, and then we migrated to Plainfield, New Jersey, and then my initial rooting which is where I met Marty and the rest of the gang, was Somerville, New Jersey.
Okay.
Junior high school, but I lived also in Virginia for a while and Salisbury, Maryland. Frank Perdue's Chicken Town.
Okay.
So this is a great story, to measuring with food and wine, right?
We love great stories, right?
Yeah. So I'm in school in Newark, New Jersey, and doing well and all that. So I was here basically with my cousins. It was 2 men and a boy, and so there was a teacher that really helped and mentored me, and she said, I'm getting a transfer to Maryland. So she asked my cousins and said, this little boy has promise, so I want to take him, if you don't mind. So my cousins said, well, let's sit down and work this out, and I got to talk to my mom and whatever. I ended up in Salisbury, Maryland, and Wycomico County. So the funny part is where we lived there, we were right along the route for Frank Perdue to the chicken slaughter plant, the processing plant.
Right.
The trucks used to come through there off Route 13 every night. And what happened, inevitably, some of the chicken crates would fall off the trucks. And so in the morning, you would come out, and there were chickens on your front yard that escaped the slaughterhouse. And you hear about that stuff all the time now, right? You hear about the cow on Long Island that they couldn't find in the woods. You remember that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I think it was last summer.
What?
A cow escaped the slaughterhouse. And sometimes here in the city with some of these halal processing places, they bring in live goats and things, and they have to process. And some of them escape. So NYPD has to bring them back in or put them somewhere, and then they usually get spared, right?
Yeah.
So, but we used to end up with these Frank Perdue chickens on our front lawn. No one ever came to claim them.
And I was like, oh, well, he's like, oh, I know how to pluck a chicken, so.
Yeah. So it was, thank you, God. It was like manna from heaven.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's an interesting piece when you try to meld your life storyline, and then you look at the culinary pieces and the key intersections, right?
Yeah.
And when these things happened. But so that it was like fifth, sixth grade. Then sixth grade, I came back and settled in Somerville, New Jersey.
Okay.
And went to school there, Somerville Middle School, Somerville High School, and then went on to Lehigh from there.
Yeah. So Lehigh it's a great little university. So your teacher is right. Clear, you had promise. And you kind of alluded to this in the beginning. What did you major in actually at Lehigh?
Yeah, so physical sciences, so with a concentration in metallurgy.
Okay.
Right, metallurgy and materials. Best Steel was right there. And there was a little backstory there.
Please.
There's a steel company called Iscot Steel in Trinidad.
Okay.
So part of my master plan was get what I needed to get here and then get back down there. I mean, we had oil, bauxite, a very, as far as Caribbean country, one of the highest educational levels and industry, right? And part of it was saying, hey, maybe one day I go down and go back and either petroleum fields, Texaco was a big major player there, and we knew a number of people, or Iscot Steel. So that was part of the master plan. But here I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, at Lehigh University, and Beth Steel and Lehigh had a heck of a relationship. A great, iconic American company, So with that, also, decided to get a concentration in behavioral science and psychology. So that was.
Okay, wait, and then, wow, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, but again, if you look at the basis for how people behave, how people choose what they want to purchase or buy, purchase whatever, marketing is psychology.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. And the technical parts of building out, understanding your target markets, how are they thinking? What's the demographic? If you look at all the descriptives and say, why are people behaving their will? And if I put this in front of them, right, what will make them say, I want that from you?
Right.
At that price, or if you're going to give it to me for free, what's the trade-off?
Right.
Right? So if you look at that, it's all behavioral study.
Yeah.
Right? And, there was an inkling at one time. Mom said, I think maybe you should be a doctor, and whatever. She said that one time. I never really took it seriously as such, but I thought understanding, and I love people.
Yeah.
Right. And this what I do every day is about people, and managing your own way, but interfacing with people and getting groups of people, moving them forward to do things. And one of the greatest thrills for me, I've had a lot of people work for me over the years, and promoting people and seeing that they're doing something at a higher level at another entity or something. They've called me back and said, we used to get pissed off when you kept us late on a Friday evening at meetings, things like that. But they said it paid off. We thank you for keeping us late. I said, we had great happy hours after, didn't we? I said that was the whole excuse. Yeah. We had to make sure that we were after 6 o'clock, 6:30 somewhere, and we can go have a great happy hour after a great business week.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all part of that. Happy hour culture in this country is something that it still hangs around.
Yeah.
And so those are some of them. But education, if I look back now, we were sitting last night listening to the president of the university talk, and we talked about the interdisciplinary studies at Lehigh University, and our great institution. And part of that is at that time it wasn't as formal as far as choosing coursework and being interested in different. But now there are a lot of institutions, but Lehigh has been one of the best as far as promoting interdisciplinary. And you can get an engineering degree, and it's not just a guy with a pocket protector, right? And you have the finance behind you and all the other pieces. And you got a great package coming out. And educators have gotten better. And look, we have all the resources to educate people at a faster rate, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to sit in a library and just pour through all these books. Internet, all the other pieces to serve it up. And if a human has capacity, they can have that interdisciplinary. So that's why I sit there and say, people say, a lot about different things. I'm always interested, right? And when someone has talked to me and have a conversation about what they do for a living, whether it be finance or whatever, I'm listening to them fully and understanding what they're doing, how they're not manipulating, but making markets, shaping markets, whatever. So it's all part of commerce. And agribusiness is the basis for everything. If you can't feed your population, you got no economy, right?
Yeah.
And we see that right now with some of the stuff going on overseas, and a breadbasket such as Ukraine, one of the biggest wheat producers in the world. And we see where the markets are, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say that you are definitely someone who was, you're definitely a visionary ahead of the time. I mean, it's just now, I love marketing too, but I read these books, like there's a professor, I think it's either Arizona State or Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence. and then a couple other professors, and that was like in the late '90s and the early aughts, where people are starting to now come. I mean, I guess there were some companies who kind of got it, but now it's more of the conversation like what is the behavior like? Why do people do the things they do? Like why? Because there's stuff that's just hardwired into people, like you were alluding to. So if you can set off certain triggers, the behavior they can't help but to purchase if you click the right levers in their brain, and the people don't know why. So for you to be back then thinking of like, and I love that you're voracious learner of life still to this day, but that just I have my little communications degree. That was hard enough. Doing presentations, so
but it's just like my composition book on the table right now, right?
Yep.
As I sit with you, I'm here to learn also, and we sit together. We're going to talk about subject matter and hearing fully some of your, I mean, this is not a 10-hour cast here that we have, and probably we'll see each other again for good cigars and continue
absolutely
talking. But it's about also making notes, right? Because I do listen, and that's one of the biggest things. God gave us 2 ears and 2 eyes to do it quite as much, and He gave us 1 mouth, right?
Yeah.
And so with that's just a mantra of mine, and just moving through, and the sciences are. We were talking. What was I speaking to? 2 days ago, I was talking to an associate, and he was talking about that. I didn't know he was a math major, and he was talking about because he was asking me. My daughter's looking at colleges now, and what she's interested in. She's interested in business finance, and he's a math major, and he was just talking about it. And you said it's the basis for everything, right? Mm-hmm. And I said the greatest intellects back from Copernicus and Socrates, you name it, and those guys studied astronomy, the astronomers, and they studied. And their mathematical concepts and some of their genius. You look at their writings, right? Plato, Aristotle. It's present day. Mm-hmm. They shared where we are now. One of the most interesting thing I think this collision of the democracy and free market capitalism, right? This intersected course, and it is at a collision point. Because that balancing off free market capitalism with democracy, it is a challenge.
Yeah.
And people were saying, look how many years it took democracy here to marinate, hundreds of years, right? Yeah. And so you have other entities around the world saying, okay, we're going democratic, we're going to support democracy now, but that commitment and perseverance to say, make this work, and it's going to take X amount of years for it to marinate and really settle in. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up. I just finished listening to a book, and it was actually it's an interesting book. It's called Woke Capitalism, and it was basically about like what you said, where the free market capitalism and democracy are colliding, and the issues that we deal with campaign finance reform, and also making sure that these companies don't use their power, because they have all these billions of dollars, make sure they're using their power not to stifle democracy, because people think that, it's great that this company says, has this commitment or comes out and says, this is our values. But a lot of those companies, like this guy worked at he's like, for Goldman Sachs, like that's just because it's fashionable and profitable, right? It's not, they actually have no commitment to it. And we really need to vigorously, in this country, fight for our democracy. So I just think, you're just like spot on with it. It's just kind of crazy. You're spot on with so many things. So you leave Lehigh, you graduate from Lehigh. And then what did you do next?
Metz Metallurgical Corporation.
Okay.
Plunged right into metallurgy. It was right down the road, South Plainfield, New Jersey, right up the road from Somerville, and plunged in there. And right away, I was thrust into a supervisory role because someone got hurt. This is a chemical plant.
Okay.
And all we handled was platinum, palladium, gold, silver, strategic metals. And we did some very interesting stuff there. It was powder metallurgy, bringing all these precious metals to liquid form, and then we supplied a lot of precious metal powders for the computer and the space industry.
Oh wow!
Go on chips and microprocessors, and a lot of they had to be able to. We came up with some very interesting projects that had to pass muster, defense, and different coatings, polymer systems, resin systems. So this was, you were in the middle of it. As I was saying to you, it was precious metals in the world. You had to bring this, reduce it with hydrochloric acid, and this was dangerous stuff because you talk about, you look at the atomic table and chart, and heat, chemical reactions, and what that could cause, and the byproducts. Just like fermentation of wine, heat is also always the byproduct that hurts everything, and creates, and it in great winemaking. And I'm just going to kind of correlate because again, we pull together, and people say from metallurgy and materials and polymers and resin systems to whatever, it's the same fermentation processes and stuff and chemical processes that makes a great wine. And we did some top secret projects for which I classified.
Well, they're top secret.
Yeah, and we worked on a lot of things. There are companies that would always say, "Hey, we're thinking about this. See if you guys can play with this, and let's see what type of what outcomes that and so you really had to. Project management was real serious. You were playing with that kind of money, right? In a week's time, we'd have hundreds of millions of dollars of precious metals going through the plant, right? You used to have to go through like the airport check you have now. Yeah. Make sure the stuff wasn't on your shoes.
Right.
You had to rinse down when you left, a silver flake and stuff like that. Wear Scott Air packs, but it really in the university. You had labs and that education and opening your pathways in your mind, right? And that's what education is about. Mm-hmm. The arts, the sciences, and all the others, and proven. But getting in firsthand and starting to help run a business that you're responsible, right? And there was no learning curve there. You really had to follow procedure, or you could create an explosion, or people would get hurt. Mm-hmm. So you had to log everything and make sure everyone knew what you added to that reaction within the last hour, how much heat is on it, things like that. So it really defined discipline. Mm-hmm. And again, in any system, a disciplined system, you usually have good outcomes. But when it's super sensitive, whether you're dealing with nuclear reactant, again, heat is the culprit, right? Just like global warming now, heat is the culprit, and you need that balance. So these are some of the things we worked on, and I had a great run there because they let me do things that I was thinking about, and I was able to take stuff off the shelf, play with systems, and it was good. It was a good run. But I got bored with that, being with a Scott Air pack and being inside. I had to be in mills. We were milling these flakes and looking under a microscope to look at the flake size and the character, just like a snowflake. You look at a flake of silver under an electron microscope, and you see it had to have certain characteristics in order to meld with a resin system. So then I got, after a certain point, it was good, and then I went over to Johnson & Johnson. Okay. I got hired in there in the sales program, and was in all of a sudden in the healthcare business.
Oh, that's wild.
Full-fledged, and I said I'll carry a sales bag from the beginning, and one of the best, obviously best companies in the world.
Yeah.
Incredible training program, and we grinded it out from grocery stores to wholesalers to you name it, selling Band-Aid brand. I mean, it was during that time when I worked there, we had the Tylenol scandal,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We had the Tylenol poisoning.
Yeah. Because that's why you now have the foil because someone's spiking them. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the packaging around pharmaceuticals and the drug industry. I mean, that helped to revolutionize, and people had to come up with better closures, right, and safer closures, because we said some parts of humanity were just not, they just didn't think the way that most of, and they could hurt you.
Yeah.
So, but that, that's a great story in itself, because there are business school cases. The business school cases, they always look at the Tylenol case, and how responsibly the company handled that.
Right.
And at the time, the chairman was Jim Burke, and it was great. One of my greatest times at Johnson & Johnson, I had the privilege of having lunch with Jim Burke one day, because I was one of the top sales guys, and X amount of us would be able to have lunch with the chairman of Johnson & Johnson Global. I mean, that was special.
That's amazing.
In New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And you could ask him one question. We each had one question we can ask him. But that, as I was saying, the business school study now is how Johnson & Johnson was able to remove the Tylenol from the shelf. We took every piece of Tylenol off the shelves in this country. That's gas stations, that's swimming pools, that's bodegas, that's grocery stores. I worked up and down this East Coast from the Canadian border down. We didn't sleep for weeks. It was a military operation.
Wow.
And we got but the interesting part was we kept our shelf space, and Tylenol came back stronger than ever when we replaced the, it wasn't, it was lots of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that had to be thrown away.
Yeah, yeah.
We just couldn't take the chance.
Yeah, no, that's utterly responsible. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, so any lecturer I've been asked to speak at different, business settings and things like that, and I said, you have it in your textbooks as a case study. I lived it.
There, I love that. So that's when you started in sales, and then you went over to, at the time it was called Grand Metropolitan. So then when did you?
Well, I've been in sales for a long time. I've been in sales all my life.
Okay.
I mean, my first paper route was 20 customers.
I love that.
And I made it 500 customers by the time it was done.
You're that guy.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
So sales is always a passion for me, and like we walk in somewhere, people receive you or not. You're selling yourself before you even open your mouth. You know that.
Right.
And especially in late 60s and early 70s.
Oh, yeah.
You walked in.
Guy looked like you or me?
Yeah. Decorum, a sense of decorum. Like you said, we didn't have much, but Mom said, keep your teeth brushed, your hair combed, neat, and if you have to wash it every night, make sure it's neat the next day and pressed. That's it. Basic standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't need too much.
Yeah.
So, but I've been in sales for, the ingenuity at the racetrack,
Yeah,
That's all sales.
It is sales. I love, we kind of think, like, I tell people everything's sales and marketing. People don't understand that. What do you think a job interview is? What do you think a date is? You're selling yourself to somebody.
That's right.
Everything is sales. Right?
Every last bit of it.
When the kid writes on the wall with the crayon and tries to point at their sibling and the crayon's in hand, that's a sales job. They're trying to convince you. They're trying to convince you to do something else. So it's pretty crazy.
So the J&J, the formal, medical and healthcare sales and all that, it was a great run. But it was great company, and always had great baby powder samples. All my friends that were having kids, I'd have to get them a goodie bag from the Johnson & Johnson store. Right, and they say, what do you have in your garage? I'll trade you. So I was trading baby powder and shampoo and oil and Reach toothbrushes, Act mouth rinse, because we had these samples that we had to go around with, or if we had to clear out a grocery store, we'd have damages in the back, and we had to give them credit because it was unsaleable to the general public.
Right.
But they would go in the trunk of my car and say, I'm not going to buy mouth rinse. I can use what I just picked up at bed. I mean, we can't sell it.
Right.
But, whatever. So, again, incredible training. So, you get a grad degree because everybody in the company, all your peers or as good or better than you.
Yeah.
Company really recruited talented people.
Yeah.
And then I look around, you couldn't, I know, whatever. But it was one of those things, again, opportunity, 80s, and had this recruiter that always followed me. He said, hey, you ready to make that move out of J&J? He said, because they like Procter & Gamble, they like J&J.
Right.
These were all well-trained, right?
Because that was an era.
Those were the standards.
IBM, all those companies had incredible sales training programs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And management training program.
Mm-hmm.
So if you came out of there, you write your next ticket. And he called me one day at the right time. His name was Sandy Gorlick, and he said, come on, you got to give it a shot. And he caught me at the right time, late 80s, and I was like, he said, you got to take a look at this company. They're a British company, and the jobs in Florida. I'm like, and it's like, close to the tropics, close to the Caribbean again, right? Jobs in Florida, and it's a great job, and good management role. So I visited with him, talked to me, and I said, Sandy, I think I might be interested. And he's like, I can't believe this, because he's been chasing me for 4 or 5 years, every year, calling me 2 or 3 times a year. Come on, I got one for you. I got this one. And so he introduced me to the management, started chatting with them, and it was good. It was food, beverage, hospitality, company-owned Pillsbury Foods, Haagen-Dazs ice cream. How can you go wrong with a brand like Haagen-Dazs,
Yeah,
right?
man. Especially then.
Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, Liam Parents?
Right?
Yeah.
I said Pillsbury.
Yep.
And Burger King, Pearl Vision Eye Care. So it was Grand Met Holding Company out of London. And I'm like, I'm a British subject anyway. I was born under the British flag in the Caribbean. So I said, what, this is meant to happen. And that's how I kind of roll my life. You get a feel at a certain time, and you say, this is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? And so I made the move. It was bittersweet leaving Johnson & Johnson. Whatever, but I still held on to my stock, and whatever. Look, it's bought more after I left. But went over to Grand Met Hugh Line Company, and they owned Smirnoff Vodka, had the rights to Jose Cuervo in America, Beaulieu Vineyard Wine, Engelnook, Almaden. So it was a great company of brands, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, start here and maybe move over to Pillsbury Foods or Haagen-Dazs or something like that. And that never happened. Got into the beverage division, and one of my first things was running a Black Velvet model search. Remember Black Velvet Canadian whiskey?
Yeah.
Yeah, model search down in Florida, and the likes of so many of the supermodels were.
Yeah, we had another guest who he was in music at first, and he was too early at music festivals, but he had sold his company, made some money, and he went down there to judge. He paid $10,000 to judge a Hawaiian Tropic bikini contest.
Yep. That's. Yeah.
And that's what it was like down there in the late 80s.
Florida. The Orlando Convention Center had the Black Velvet model search. My first official night on the job. You had Kim Alexis, Kelly M. Berg, Sybil Shepherd. All of them are former Black Velvet models.
Wow.
So I'm responsible for rolling around with them to the different outlets in Orlando, and home of the mouse. And it's like, I'm getting paid for this. But again, you had to coordinate and manage whether it was all about marketing and presence and the brand and branding. And then we had Jose Cuervo tequila under our management, so I had to manage in the state of Florida and other areas. The same thing, volleyball, beach volleyball, and beach volleyball started becoming very. So Cuervo games of winter. We used to do that on the ski slopes, and then the beach volleyball in Florida. I mean, people needed a Cuervo barrelhead T-shirt. They would do anything for a Cuervo barrelhead T-shirt, and it had all types. Willie Nelson, we collaborated with Willie Nelson and Tanya Tucker, and whatever. So it was really hospitality and entertainment at its fullest, and there and it's Atlanta based also, had Texas, and Kentucky, the whole southeast quadrant to the Midwest. So I did a lot of skiing and a lot of volleyball management.
Nice. You know what? We need to take a quick break, and we'll come right back, and we'll unpack more of your incredible journey. So we'll be right back, everybody. Okay, we're back. So you're managing volleyball and ski, but what I love about your background, like it's high level. Like something you even said with Johnson and Johnson, like when you pulled time off, like it was like a military operation. So you operate with really precision and process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Should we jump ahead? Yeah, let's jump ahead a little bit. So let's talk about. So how long were you? I know how to do this. How long were you with Grand Metropolitan Group, and then what?
Quite a number of years in Atlanta, just before the Olympics.
Okay.
So from like '89 through the just before the Olympics, I left because traffic started getting horrendous in Atlanta. They asked me to go to Orange County, California, to take a look and whatever. I'm just not a West Coast guy.
You're not California, ain't no West Coast.
I'm just not a West Coast guy. It's fun to go out there and do beach volleyball stuff and volleyball dolly and all that good stuff, but it just it didn't work out. And I ended up coming back to New York City when I drove over the Verrazano Bridge from Atlanta. It was just that night I drove across. I was thinking Saturday Night Fever, the lights on the bridge, and I was just like, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I started running the fourth largest distributor of beverage alcohol in the country at the time. It was Peerless Importers from the Malioco family.
Wow.
And I was their general a GM for them, managing their sales. So that was great. We had again all types of great brands under management at the time, from Johnny Walker to Bacardi to Smirnoff and Cuervo and Bailey's, Romana Zambuca, Amaretto di Serrano.
I mean, these are to this day they're in every bar.
Yeah.
Every bar.
Yeah, and we work closely with Robert Mondavi.
Okay.
At that time, wine lists in New York were mainly Italian wine, some German, and French.
Yeah.
California was sort of just making its way here. Mm-hmm. So Robert Mondavi, and his team, the Mondavi Winery, they just did an incredible job with doing wine tastings, wine dinners, starting to, we all worked hard to get placements on restaurant wine lists, and California and other California growers followed suit and started, making way, and you saw New York wine lists convert. So I was thrilled to be, part of that and that metamorphosis, and that you came through there. And so many years working with, again, great brands, working with very talented managers of these major producers and from all over the world, and got some great trips out of it, right? I've played St. Andrews 17, 18 times.
Oh, wow.
In function of, we had this brand called Famous Grouse Scotch.
Yeah, I know Famous Grouse.
And we Famous Grouse Scotch, and we reworked the Wild Turkey business. Austin Nichols was right here in the40 45th Street, I believe. They owned Yoo-Hoo and Orangina also.
I remember Orangina. I loved the original Orangina. It was
right?
so good.
So Austin Nichols was the branded company that managed all those brands. So we had that under management. But this business, it takes you, it gets you to every port of call, from Portugal to Spain, and just incredible culinary. And you get to meet some of the greatest chefs, some of the greatest winemakers in the world. They know their science, right? Mm-hmm. These folks are using the sciences to craft something that gives you an experience that you say, you say, wow, the endorphin flow and the release that you're having an incredible night in a chateau in France with some of the, that's what it's all about. The whole food, beverage, as you were saying before, process, discipline, and vineyard tent. You understand vineyard management, and people don't understand viticulturists and the winemakers. These guys are challenged when as you know from some of when the weather and late late rain during harvest time.
That's the worst.
The worst, or the grapes haven't reached the ripeness and they're fighting to stay on the vine for a few more days to get that sugar content right. I mean, these guys are masterful, and then them saying, this is how much barrel we're going to need to use with this year, with this vintage,
right,
and whatever. When you start getting down to the nth degree of that, then you talk about, again, my background from the scientific side and hearing these guys do their trade, then, handling sugars, which is what we're doing, the fermentation process, and handling it the right way and coming out with balance, right?
Yeah. So what do you, I have to ask, so what do you think of natural wine?
What I think of natural wine, I think that, conventional winemaking, when you say natural wine, you mean from natural yeasts and natural fermentation.
Yeah, there's some people who they just stomp the grapes. It's native yeast. It just
from there.
They don't, but they're not using. People don't realize people make wines naturally that don't have chemicals. But you're using science in your advantage. Sometimes I think some of the new natty wine people, they're using science to their disadvantage, right? Sugar, it's going to ferment, right? Okay, we know that. But then, are you trying to craft the best wine you can, or are you just trying to say, well, this is natural wine and it's better for you? And that's what I'm talking about.
So with that, and that's why I want to ensure that, again, we both have our own interpretations, and you talk to 10 people that, from organic to natural wine, and we're a country of labels now.
Yep.
We're over-defining down to the nth degree, and that's why I asked you to clarify, because and so you and I talking about subject matter today about just allowing the natural process, right, and the natural yeast that may be existing on the skin or in the air to go. So, as you just said, I've seen that that natural thing, and no intervention from or other chemistry, things like that. That is so important to them, and taste is not.
Right. Yeah.
But here's what I'm going to say to you, because people have always asked me, what is this supposed to taste like? And I say, your saliva, your composition, how you were breastfed as a kid ends up determining how certain things on your palate, right?
Yeah.
Taste.
Yep.
And so the conventional way, I've seen some winemakers or somms just get totally batty because they're in front of an audience, and they have defined that this should taste like hints of this and hints of that, and with a little clove and this and finish it.
Right.
And the other people aren't feeling that. And then they say something like, it tastes like a dry peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then the somm or whatever, they go bananas.
Right,
and they
right.
you see them stomping,
Right.
and they're breathing fire.
Right.
And they won't even talk to the person at the end of the wine presentation.
Right.
As they say, you're beneath me. And that's what happened in this business, right? It became so damn snobby at a point. Right? And so from my standpoint, if somebody says that this is my natural concoction, and their endorphin release and their happiness comes from that they created that, and it's good for them, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And that's how I have been over 3.5, almost 3.5 decades of wine, wine knowledge and working with some of the top and some of the bottom viticulturists and how they do their technique, because where they might be on the globe trying to make wine, and hearing from them what they're trying to achieve. If these guys, it may not be to a 96 rated point standard, right, true to varietal content or whatever, but if they achieve with their little skill or knowledge what they feel is whatever, their happiness quotient is satisfied. And that's what in my food and wine vein, as I've sat in front of lots of folks, they want to get technical and go and want to know how many hours of fermentation, malolactic, and
Yeah.
whatever. Then we can go there. That's what kicks you off. We'll go there. But for the most part of my audience, I said, find something tonight that you like that can pair on what you're having on your plate or what you've started with tonight. And if it brings a smile to your face, whatever the wine critics say, rating or whatever, if it's 100 to you, we're good.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say to you about natural, organic, and what people are trying to achieve in the health sphere of the world now.
Right.
It's very important to them, and I
like that.
we want everybody's mental balance, that they're good.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I love what you said, and I had an MW on, and she said the same thing. Like, everyone's saliva is different. Like, I can't, you can't tell people what they're tasting. So, and I always tell people, first of all, drink what you want to drink. That if you just enjoy. Listen, if you want to have Pinot Grigio and a burger, then that's what you should have. Like, you don't have to have the perfect pairing. You should, like you said, what brings joy to you. Now, I know what I enjoy. And I think what people have liked about the podcast, like, I don't like to go deep in the weeds on, like I said, if it's on a tech sheet, you can read the tech sheet. You can know the bricks and the date and what the rainfall is.
Yep.
But I'm loving the stories you're sharing with us. That's what we do here. So let's jump ahead a little bit. So when did you start Andrew LLC, the consulting?
So after sitting at, again, at Peerless Importers, and in this business, there's always a lot of jostling, and we used to have Kettle One under management, things like that. And I was sitting there one day.
I know all these brands because of my age, and like, you helped launch all these brands.
We've worked on,
wow.
It's and that's why I said this whole marketing thing, and sitting in planning meetings to say, how do we get this out? How do we roll this out in this category and get some shelf space and get the consumer excited about trying it, right? So, in 1998, and tomorrow is April Fool's Day, has been a major day for me career-wise over years. For some reason, April 1, I've always, if I was making a major move career-wise, or it's been around April 1.
Okay, wow, that's good. I like
so
that. Turn it on its head.
Yeah, so it was April 1, 1998. And when I made the move, I had let, obviously, ownership know months before that I decided I was going to take a piece in a winery upstate New York, Brotherhood Winery, America's oldest.
That's the oldest winery.
Yeah.
I didn't find out until like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I was, I became part of the ownership team up there, and the sellers there were great. People I used to meet them in the city, and they said, we used to go up there and party. And, during Prohibition, right, because they made Sacramento wine, they continued, but the sellers were storied. And a childhood friend of mine from Somerville, Steve Mitchell, he's just such a handy guy. I got him up there, and we he was just working on stuff in the cellar. Cesar Baeza, he's one of the top wine masters in the world. You talk about a palate. He's one of my mentors, and as far as wine making and understanding, and this man he's one of those that his palate, and he can tell you what year, what vintage, and he's always inside that window. Just blind. I'm pretty good. I was blessed with pretty good, and people say to me, when you got to do 750 to 800 wines in a day, and you go overseas to some Vinexpo or some whatever, or some of the sessions I've had to do with, your palate gets pretty fatigued, and you got to understand how to handle that, whatever. But when you can pick up your sense of smell, and with what people have been plagued with the last 2 years, with COVID and losing smell and taste, that's something critical that you can't afford to lose in this business.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And food. So so Cesar Baeza is up at Brotherhood, And you know, we had great plans laid up there, and to say, hey, let's make this back into something. New York State winery, America's oldest winery, and dot dot dot. But you know, again, we can lay out all the plans we want, but the cosmos has a master plan for us. You know how that goes, right?
Yep, yep.
And you know, I got a call one day. I'm sitting down at my house or whatever, and it's Steve, and he said to me, "The winery's on fire."
Oh.
And I said, "What?" And he said, "The winery's on fire." And yeah, and it was all over the news. Brotherhood Winery's on fire. I'm turning on TV and all that, whatever. I went up there the next morning, and the state trooper stopped me. "Where are you going? You can't go in there." I said, "I'm one of the owners." He said, "Oh, you can go in." And they go in, and so we're sitting in the offices looking at the building, and there was a chapel there that whatever, and all that was standing were the stone walls. And it was a snowy day, and so the steam was rising up from that, and I just sit there numb, and I said to the Cesar, I said, "This is some meaning for Chardonnay." And he broke a smile, and I said, "That's it. That's it." So we got Chardonnay, and yeah, so you know that put us in a place that I shifted, had to pivot.
Yeah.
And so Peter Andrew, I had started Peter Andrew already, and had that sitting on top, but the winery was going to be, you know, this platform that gave us 5 outlets in New York that we could sell New York State wines at and all that. So it put us in, as a New York State vintner and distiller, it gave you certain privileges and all that. And we had a marketing plan to do that, but that put us behind. So you know, we did some projects for Pernod and the folks that own Alizé here, and Remy, and you know, some other major consulting projects. So I was overseas and all that. And then South Africa was just opening up.
Yeah.
And I got a call from a gentleman one night, a dear friend of mine. His name was Bob Lee, and he said, "Pete," he said, "look," he said, "I've got some guys that have come to me, but I can't help them." He said, "I want to introduce them to you. I know you can help them." And he was just a great human being, Bob Lee. We worked together, and may he rest in peace. And so the guys were leaving the next day for South Africa, and they said, "Can you meet us tonight?" And I said, "Okay." And they said, "You know, we'll meet you at like 11 o'clock at night." And we're staying down at they were staying in one of the Helmsley hotels. I said, "Okay, I'll meet you." So I finished doing what I was doing. I was in Manhattan anyway, and I went over and met with them, and they unveiled. They said, "Look, we really want to try to get this. I know you know about apartheid and dot dot dot." And we sat there talking, and I said, "Bob Lee sent you to me," and I said, "I'll help you. I'll try to help you if I can." And the guy smiled. He said, "I'm going to leave this with you." And so he didn't have to figure out how to bundle this liquid and put it back on the plane. He said, "I'll leave this." And it was a brand called Imoya. And Imoya was in a green and gold bottle, and there was a brandy from the Cape of Good Hope made by one of the collaboration of a black brandy master, Dr. Elroy Goliath, and his counterpart at KWV, and it was Kubis Gillibrand. Kubis was his counterpart, and they teamed up. And again, this was early days. 94 was the Democratic election, and I started. They said we'd love for you to come down to the Cape and see us and all that. And I headed on down to the Cape of Good Hope, and then we flew to Canada together to talk with a marketing agency, and we put it together and walking around the Cape of Good Hope. Rutgers was on the ground down there. Okay. As I was walking around, obviously coming out of apartheid, things were very challenged. Just getting fresh running water. The school systems, as always in an agrarian society, always challenged, as we have in our country in some parts of agrarian society. And we said, look, I will look at, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. I really believe that. And I said, I will help, but we need to get these kids up off the floor. And the various, because the farm schools, certain farms, the parents picked all day, and the young people were huddled in what's supposed to be a school, but not much to it. You hope they got a glass of milk, and usually not too many shoes and things. So I said, we got to get these kids off the floor. And while I was walking in one of the vineyards, a young person came over and said, "Sir, can I borrow a pencil?" I gave him a pen. It was some kind of good pen. I handed the kid the pen, and they went away. And we were doing our things in the vineyard, looking at grape quality. And then the young person came back and said, "Thank you, sir." And I said, "What are you doing?" And they were writing on the side of a small piece of a paper bag that they'd found. And that's how it. And I said to him, "I'll work with you, but you contribute, we contribute. Let's get these kids off the floor, and let's get them some pens and all that." And a dear friend in Jersey, who was a Rutgers grad, Vic Nichols, he knew I called him, and he said, "Look, Dr. Darren Clark, he has a team of educators down there from Rutgers University, and they have a program." And so we got back here, and we got Dr. Clark, myself, and I together, and said, I need an educational partner. Said we're the commercial. So that was part of our Vision 57 Foundation that we launched, and Rutgers was the educational partner on the ground. Lehigh ended up joining on later, and I thought I had two great institutions that could help advance some of the. And it was about teaching South Africans how to do anything educationally. It was just putting some resources before their own government could actually get it there in a and we didn't want to lose those generations, right? And at-risk communities and shanties and things like that. So we had a heck of a program. I mean, we started putting books and computers and all that in wine containers and sending it back down to the Cape. And we had certain schools we adopt a school program, and educators from New Jersey that were part of the Rutgers Graduate School of Education would go down, and they would spend 2 to 3 weeks, and some of them living in some of the homes with the families and things like that. So it wasn't all coddled up or whatever. Real life, real world. And most of the educators said to me, they said, "This is one of the greatest experiences I've had in my life, because life-changing, and it wasn't about us thinking we were going to go teach them. We learned from them. They don't have near as much as us, and they're still conveying educational concepts that are sticking and that are working." So it was good for the folks here to see how much we really have here to work with. And these folks didn't have as much, but they were still the basic educational concepts. So again, continue, always been a support of education that was ingrained in me early. And so that's some of the work we did. I had a chance to meet Mbeki, President Mbeki, President Mandela, and Desmond Tutu, and we work very closely with South African consulate here. We went to and helped, went to the World Bank and tried to help farmers as they were trying to raise funds for their fruits and vegetables and things like that. So we actually sat in Washington D.C. at the World Bank and just trying to talk about the agribusiness there. Again, people needed to be able to feed the multitudes, right? So the Cape of Good Hope. An amazing place. Have you ever been?
No, I have not been to South Africa.
That needs to be
okay. I know.
Because, again, so I was telling you about here in the 60s in America and going through, the racial unrest and things like that. And then in the Cape of Good Hope, right, you have majority and black minority here. Cape of Good Hope, you had black majority and white minority rule, but the reality of it is obviously the democratic election and that transfer of power in a peaceful manner, relatively peaceful manner, and Mandela, again, stated what he wanted to do, and this forgiveness and reconciliation, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that people were able to talk to each other and say, I know I did, what I did was wrong and whatever. So
Wow.
I was, again, those chapters in your life and you say why you end up where you end up at the time, no grad school could have taught me that.
No, that's just...
That was live on the ground in the agribusiness and interfacing with students and teachers who were so thankful. We'd bring them down, whether it's coats or bike program or whatever. Just they were so appreciative that someone cared.
Yeah. I mean, there is this theme at this point, clearly, of the humanitarianism through your work. Talk a little bit about your project with the New York City firefighters.
Yeah. So the Firehouse Kitchen is the TV show, and Ray Cooney has been he's the star of that, and Gerard Kane is his partner. So they came to me one day and they said, well, I know them from a business networking group.
Okay.
And Gerard came to me and he said, I want to introduce you to Ray, firefighter Ray. And so I said, fine. And then we all got together, and again, food and wine. And then he said, maybe we put one of your products on our show and whatever. And I said, why don't we do better than that? Why don't we make you, a product so that you don't have to keep going around canvassing, but you can have your own wine. And he said, will it go well with grill foods and things like that? And I said, that they cook in the firehouse? I said, we can construct it with you. And so that's what we did. We said, no formal big agreements or whatever. We said, let's do this. So I tasted them through like 50-something wines, different reds that I had in the warehouse and all that. And they said, that profile, like that profile right there. A little bit of smoke and this and that and the other. And they ended up choosing the red wine that you have in front of you here. This is a
Smoke Eater.
Yeah.
First
and that's
Stew Red.
First Stew Red. And that syncs up with the First Stew truck to, wanted to stay in that thematic of what these guys have done over all this time, right? First Stew truck that's, on call to go out to a fire.
Okay.
So, incidentally, we tasted through from Bordeaux to Australia to whatever. Incidentally, they ended up choosing a Pinotage from South Africa.
Yes.
Which is, Pinotage pairs up so well with grill foods. That marriage of Pinot Noir and Hermitage, that grape that was, grafted together back in 25 by Dr. Perrell. And that's what they chose, blind. And
wow.
said that's the taste profile that, based on what we cook in the firehouses and some of the cuisine and things like that. So that's how the First Stew Red was born, and we got one of my partners in a vineyard in South Africa and said, give us some, and this thing is showing brilliantly right now, just running well. And so then we said we needed to give it a white wine pairing and find an all hands white, which is another call, all hands on call, and white wine. So that is the all hands white Pinot Grigio Fruli, and one of my this 30-something years in this business, some great relationships at vineyards around the world. So we chose that to be the white. So that's the companion for now, and we're going to be extending that wine to go along with some of the other foods that we're launching under the
yeah, because you said something about you're part of a cattle ranch in Montana.
Yeah. So this is we're in the cattle business, and I also, as I shared with you, Fancy Foods here in the Bronx is my anchor and home. So it's been an opportunity to put together my whole. And during college in Lehigh, at night I used to sell food after school. I'd put on a suit at night and go around Pennsylvania selling meats and freezer packed American frozen foods out of Stratford, Connecticut. So from college, Right? That's a part-time job. I was
Yeah.
selling meat. So it's interesting. People are like, so about 5, 6, 7 years ago, about 7 years ago, um, some folks that were working on some TV stuff in Hollywood said, my dad's working on a vodka. He's gluten-free. He's a celiac sufferer.
Okay.
Say whatever. So they talked to one of the assistant producers, Michael, and Michael said, "Oh my goodness, I know some guys back in New York, and they probably can help you." So his dear friend Constantinos Sagonis, and Constantino is one of my partners, and so Michael comes back and says, "Look, I want to introduce you to some cowboys from Montana," and so Brian Massard and Marcia and daughter Zira, they flew out here, met us at a hotel outside LaGuardia Airport, and we met with them, and they said, here's our gorgeous vodka. It's called Gorgeous Vodka. And they said, we have a pepper and a cranberry tea that goes well with cigars and straight. And he told me the story behind why he made it. He's a celiac sufferer, and he wanted to, and so it's from Idaho potatoes, Idaho and Montana. Montana raises a lot of potatoes people don't know.
Yeah.
But Idaho. So he showed it to me, whatever. And I talked him through, vodka category, one of the most aggressive and competitive categories in this country. We talked through it, and he said, so he said, look, we'll talk. Brian was walking around Manhattan with his big buckle on, and it was a great meeting. And so about 30 days later, he called me and said, my family and I talked about it, and we think we want Blackhawk to help us. And so I said, I'd be thrilled to try to help you with it. We're realistic, and I said, brutal category, but we'll help you. And I said, I like this. So I ended up, I needed to go to Montana to take a look at things and production and all that. And so while I was out there, ended up in Idaho. First we had a big dinner, and the potato that they gave me for appetizer was as big as my head.
Oh, my God.
Right? And they wanted to put tips. They wanted to filet mignon tips on the potato. This was the appetizer.
Oh, wow.
I said,
what?
I will never be able to eat the main course if I eat a potato as big as my head with filet mignon tips on it. That's how they roll. Sour cream, chive, you name it, and little tips of some filet. That's your appetizer. And I said, I'll eat a quarter of that. I want tomahawk. And so we did that. Then we went back to the ranch and the feed yards and their stock yards, stayed with them. And then said, we're going to go out to the Big Hole, which is where their cows were grazing, cattle were grazing. And they said, we're going out there. They said, you've been on, you got any experience with horses? I said, oh, yeah, I do, from a kid. So we went out there, and it was a match made in heaven. Went out there and rode the range and some things. And, the rest is history. And we talked about meat, but they're mainly they're some of the top breeders of Angus cattle in this country.
Okay.
It's called Reminisce Ranch, and Brian Massard and Marcia are the principals. But over the years, from the Gorgeous Vodka and that, they didn't know my deep meat background and protein background, and so from that's kind of melded, and that's how it happens. I was just out there March 5th. We were there for the bull auction and sale, and they did some prize bulls. They had some excellent. They broke some records, and then he and I moved 250 head out of the state grazing lands back to his ranch. And I
When you say move, what does that entail?
he and I on horseback.
Oh, okay.
Herding, and everybody's asking me, have you seen Yellowstone? I said, yeah, but I don't have enough time to be looking at Yellowstone. But I know Yellowstone. I've lived Yellowstone.
Yeah, again, I don't need to see your movie. I've lived this.
But so we had to herd them out of the pasture that we're in the state grazing land, and then move them through and move them back to his ranch. It was a few miles in between, and we're moving 250 head of cattle along the roadside, and Marcia's got the horse truck, whatever, and we got we had 4 cattle dogs And
that's the
great.
whole deal.
It's the whole deal. It's the whole deal. Being in big sky country, you hear your own heartbeat. Horse. My horse is Will. Brian gave me Will, big buckskin. About he's over 15 hands, big buckskin. I'll show it to you before I leave here today. And that's it. But at the bull sale, they're cooking up fresh steaks, ribeyes on the back in the back grill. All the cowboys are cooking them up, and everybody that's at the bull sale is enjoying that with some. So it's real life, real world. And again, what people don't understand is the amount of work that these cowboys actually do to bring a piece of meat to market. And you sit there and think, but roping and herding, getting up every day at 4 or 5 in the morning to feed those cows, and then the snowfall that comes in and move them, and you got to take care of them, and if they're not well, you got to take care of them. So ranching and farm work is hard, and many people don't realize what it takes to really get food onto your table. Right? And the commitment, they're sitting out there in the Midwest and West, and they hear all these stories about how many people are obviously during some of the relief that the government gave with unemployment and things like that, and people were sitting at home and collecting money they hadn't collected before. And these guys out there, they said, we can't do that, Pete. We got to get up every day and feed these cows, and the price of corn and grain and things like that. So again, to be in the midst of that, and I love the agribusiness, and it's who I am. That's who I am. I got, people always ask me all the time, you love your cowboy boots. I said, yeah, I got lots of them. And I've always been, wearing them. I've worn some of them straight through. So, ostrich, and then say, you just, but. That's who it is. So yeah, that's my involvement out there. Brian's a partner, and I'm a partner with them, and we're marketing meat, protein, and and his gorgeous vodka.
I love it. I can't believe how time's flown by. You've done. There's I'm sure you have 8 million more stories you could share. So you obviously just cooking when you're 5, food and wine is a big part. Was there a bottle of wine that really had you fall in love with wine? Though, do you have a memory of your favorite bottle during all these years or anything like that?
So one, so my open mind, I go in again for experience, and I will taste just about any wine from any part of the world, and I want to see what type of cuisine they've made it to. So I usually work with food wines, but as far as memorable, I'll tell you, one of the wines before I even started working for the company, Beaulieu Vineyard out of California.
Oh, yeah, BV.
Right, BV. And BV, before I even started working for them, and when I was just a youngster, not knowing too much out there, just post-college, getting out of the beer drinking days and all. But, people always just say, I got a buddy out of, his family is originally from Switzerland, whatever. His father was an ambassador, but he used to say to me, you're always like Joe Suave. And he said, Joe Suave Bola. Because he said, if I'd go out on a date or something, I would make sure I chose wine or try to whatever. He said, we were giving somebody a can of Miller or Budweiser, and you were on the wine thing. And I said, wine, flowers. I said, it's romantic. It's romantic stuff. But anyway, Beaulieu Vineyard, right? BV Reserve.
Yep,
I remember I had absolutely the Latour, absolutely. So that was one of my most memorable before even getting into the business. But one of the most incredible experiences I had were at Chateau Pabousse in France with my dear friend Bob Dow, who owns Pabousse, and we got to taste through all of the top wines. And this was 2016, I think 2016 it may have been. We got to taste through all of the top-rated wines of 1982 Bordeaux. That's all I'm going to say to you.
All right, so that's a good place to wrap up because that is a mic drop ending. Peter, tell people. First of all, thank you so much I'm glad we finally got to do this. Thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
Tell people where they can find out more about all the projects, all the things you have your hand on. what
Yeah,
are
sure.
you doing?
Sure. As far as on the food side, so smokeeatergourmet.com. And within 2 weeks, we're going to be live as far as being able to have some of the finest cuts from ribeye to tomahawk that you have ever seen in this country. Smoke Eater Gourmet LLC, but smokeeatergourmet.com. And you're going to be able to order right online, upper choice, prime, and we are giving back to fallen firefighters, Fired Up for the Cure, and then Tower to Tunnel. Right, and my partner is Ray Cooney, Firehouse Kitchen Show. Some new episodes will be running soon, and whatever. And then on the beverage side, blackhawkimports.com, and from there you'll see Gorgeous Vodka out of Montana, and then Peramo out of Italy, our DNA out of South Africa, which is a Cabernet Franc backbone, which you will get to. I'll be leaving it here for you to sample and taste. So
awesome. So everybody. Don't forget to check out the show notes for each episode. We're going to put this information that Peter just shared so you can see it as well. You'll find info on the wines that were on the table, all the gourmet products that he's bringing to you. And this was just another great episode. Thank you so much. Until the next time, cheers to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and, of course, to all you wine drinkers. Cheers. It's your boy MJ. Peace. We're clear. We're going to edit anyway.
Good.
Yeah, we're clear. Oh my God! Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I hope it met your